mothers in general need to know about money and finances, and we are the first teachers of our children. And so we need to be equipped with the knowledge so we can make sure we pass it down.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Welcome to Christ podcast show where we inspire the masses to become financially free while building God's kingdom. On the podcast, we have Ms. Regina Byrd. Ms. Regina Byrd is a certified financial planner, and she's on a mission to educate women around the world about how to create generational wealth. So thank you for being here, Ms. Regina Byrd.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Busy, but doing very well.
That's
Always
good.
a good day when God wakes you up.
Amen, amen, amen to that. So my first question is, who is Ms. Regina Byrd?
Well, Miss Regina Byrd, first of all, is a lover of God. She is a mother. She is a wife. She is a financial educator for mothers. She is a pioneer. She is a warrior in Christ's kingdom. That's who she is.
That's great. That's great. So, what led you to become an entrepreneur and take on this role of educating women around the world, mothers specifically,
Yeah,
about building generational wealth?
that is a good question. Well, the main thing was I had my son, and I remember sitting in corporate, and I remember saying to myself, this cannot be it. There has to be more. And I became on a mission. And as I became on my mission, I was like, I wonder if other mothers feel this way. And so that was what God placed on my heart. But the funny thing was, when I was in middle school, I remember writing, because I've always had a journal, and I wrote down on my journal, I am going to help people with money. Here I am, 25 years later, doing my purpose.
Wow, 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 wow. That's pretty impressive. So, I know you said you had a kid, but what in that moment is like, okay, this is something I have to do. You can like go more into detail about the feeling you was having, like this is something I need to help women with.
Yeah, well, there's two incidents actually. I can remember one time because I wouldn't say early, but in my 20s. And I remember saying to myself, okay, I don't have any money for diapers. Like you you have to get to a point where the norm is not okay. And so I remember I was like, I don't have any money for diapers. And I had to break my piggy bank to get money for diapers. And I said, this is not going to happen. Then the second time when I was in that food stamp line, and listen, men, women, we all go through things. But for
Yeah.
me, I told myself, I will never, ever be here again. And it's no shame to people that are there, but you can't stay there. And that
Yeah.
was my mindset. So I had to learn about money. I had to learn about finances. For a long time, I screamed, no one's teaching me this. Why did they teach me financial education in high school? Because they didn't want us to know. And so it's our job as people that do know the information to share it with mothers. And I said, I'm going to teach every mother I know about financial education and how to build generational wealth for their children. And I've been on that mission ever since.
That's great. And why women, mothers in Pacific? Why is it important for mothers to become financial literate?
Well, two reasons come to mind. Number one is because mothers are the first teachers in the home. And so we have, as mothers, we must learn about finances so we can teach our children. I actually started a money school at my house, and I brought the cousins in, and I used to teach every weekend to my children different aspects of assets. Me and my daughter, she's 9 now, but when she was 6, we had a song. Me and my son, he was learning about stocks. So mothers are like the first component to learning in the home. And then the second thing is when you are a single mother, a married mother, it really doesn't matter, especially single mothers. You need to know how to allocate your money properly because, you're the only one there. And so it's really important for, single mothers, especially, but even married mothers, because, when you are a partnership with your husband, you need to know about finances. A lot of married mothers make the mistake of, okay, well, he makes the money, he needs to know everything. No, you have to know yourself. So those are the two reasons. Mothers in general need to know about money and finances, and we are the first teachers of our children. And so we need to be equipped with the knowledge so we can make sure we pass it down.
No, you're 100% right on that. And I want to ask, as for someone who may be a mother listening to this, what would you say is the first step or the first thing they should do in terms of
Mhm.
learning about financial literacy and building generational wealth?
Well, I always say, okay, so I'm going to tell you um, um, that in terms of like learning aspect, and then I'm going to tell you what they should be focusing on. So the first thing is to pick up a book. I always tell people pick up some books, and I'm going to give some books. Of course, you know Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and actually he has a whole series. He's been writing books. That's not his first book. That's actually his second book. But from that book to now, he has so many different books. He has How the Rich Have Gotten Richer. I just read that like a month ago. Amazing book, and it actually talks about the recession and how to build wealth in any recession, any downturn. So that's a good book. Um, the Richest Man in Babylon. It talks about, assets and really how to find wealth within. So those are just two books. I have like a criteria of books off the top of my head, but I'm just going to start with that. And the second thing that a mother needs to do to get started is focus on her credit. I know that might sound okay. Well, how does that have anything to do with financial education? When you understand the credit game and how you can use that as leverage to catapult your family, a woman that has good credit is a woman that has leverage. So if I was telling a woman just starting out, I would say start focusing on your credit, especially if she's starting zero. She might not have no money. She's like, well, what do I do? Start building that credit. Then you're going to start saving, and then we're going to start going in assets. But the first thing, ma'am, is to understand credit.
No, that's well said. And I wanted to ask, can you mention something earlier about in terms of mindset? When you had those two different
Mm,
experiences with the piggy bank and when you was at the EBT line, what
yeah.
allowed you to change your mindset? Like, what was that mindset change or what mindset shifts? Like, say, this is not going to be me ever
Mm,
again. I need to be on the other side, and become
yeah.
wealthy for my kids, help them live a better life than I'm currently living.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we got to take it back a little bit. So I grew up middle class, like upper middle class. My father is Nigerian. And so they definitely instilled in me who I am at a very, very young age. So even though I, quote unquote, failed, which really wasn't a fall, actually, everything is opportunity. But even though I felt like that, I knew exactly where I belonged and who I was. And so my mindset kind of went back to that childhood. The second thing was in that transition, right, of my life, I started really getting connected with God. And and just take it back. My father's a Catholic, so I've always been to church, and dum, and you do that whole thing. But when I but when I went through that, I built a relationship. And so when you start really reading the Bible and start like feeling the Holy Spirit inside of you, I was like, I God told me I'm supposed to be wealthy. I know that might sound crazy, but God told me that, the riches and glory are laid out for his children, and so I felt that, right? And so that made my mind change. Me reading the Bible and realizing who I am. I couldn't like when you know who you are, you can't stay in mess. It can be a message for you, or your test can be a testimony. But that was like really my mindset shift, like remembering who I was, and then also really reading the Bible and saying, okay, God wants us to be wealthy, not just for ourselves, but to help other people. And so that was like my mindset change.
No, that's really great, and it's good that you had that mindset and change because I can just imagine women who will listen to this podcast interview, like you mentioned, even married or single women, they have this perspective that a man always has to provide financially, and as a
Yeah.
result, they don't necessarily get into understanding finance or understanding how to run a home in terms of financially. So, how would you like the I guess the actual steps, and once they have the mindset, what should they do? Like, what kind of, you spoke about credit. So how should they go about building their credit if you would start off there? We could start off there.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you asked some good questions, and I want to say five things
Mhm.
that once they kind of,
Mhm.
I guess become enlightened, these are the five things that they need to work on. They need to first of all work, and then we're gonna go back to credit, but work on your credit, work on acquiring a new skill, work on purchasing assets, work on getting around people that have the same mindset, right? And then work on estate planning, like wills and trust, right? So I know that's a lot, but it's a lot, but it can take you very, very far. Okay. So the first thing about credit, first of all, you want to know exactly what your credit score is. That's the first thing. Know what your credit score is. So you want to take um, the free go annual credit score.com, I believe, and get your free download of your credit report. There, you want to analyze what is on your report. Do you have too many inquiries? Do you have some old debt? Like, we got to start facing our stuff because that's when God can do what He needs to do in our lives. So that's the first thing. Like, get your credit report, see what's on it, and then start attacking those issues. Because a lot of times we ignore them thinking that they're going to go away. It's not going to go away. You're going to have to face your credit in order to increase your score.
That's well said. That's really important. Yeah, like for those who are listening, credit is definitely important. It definitely allows you to do different things. You can start different business. And I could just want to add, because you mentioned a lot about God. How you find the identity back in God. Allows you to grow tremendously. So how has your faith helped you in this
Mm.
entrepreneurship journey?
Oh man, I just laugh at that because it is my foundation. Now, let me back it up a little bit. I've been doing this for 10 years, right?
Wow.
10 plus years, been grinding, been teaching, and a lot of times when I'm kind of an introvert. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I'm kind of an introvert. And so a lot of times you question yourself. So two reasons how my faith has helped me. My faith has helped me get over myself and say, I am here to serve other people. Okay. And so I can't just like be quiet in the closet. The second thing faith has done on my entrepreneurial journey, if you don't know anything about entrepreneurship, they are ebbs and flows, which means 1 minute you're riding high, bop, bop, I'm on top, everybody's calling me, I'm doing good. And the next minute there's crickets and nobody's buying your stuff. You have to be rooted in your faith journey in God and who you are to know that this is purposeful. I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. And recently, in 2 years, now people know my name. I'm like, what? I've been on the ground running for 10 years doing this, but it's all in God's timing. And once you understand that, you just keep doing the work. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're getting kudos or if no one is listening. You have to keep doing the work because when you understand that this is God's work, He's just doing it through you. It's not for you to be all emotional. This is God's work. He's doing it through you. So that's how my faith has really grounded me in this entrepreneurship game because it can get rough sometimes.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. There is ups and downs, and definitely takes a strong mindset, and definitely knowing who you are in God. Because if you don't know who you are in God, when things go down, people not calling you, you just like, oh, you don't think too highly of yourself. So it's important for you
Mhm.
to find who you are in God. So when you do go to the downs, you're still that king, you're still that queen that
Come
God has given
on.
you in this world. And that leads me
Yes.
to Alex. You know, I know you talk about trust funds, creating trust funds, babies for
Yes.
women.
Yes.
I want to ask, what is a trust fund for those who may not understand, what is a trust fund?
Sure. So a trust basically is a legal document where you put your assets in the trust and they're passed down to your beneficiaries, which can be your children, which can be charities, which can be, your nieces and your nephews. It just depends on who you want your beneficiaries to be. So and the greatest thing about having a trust, it does not go through probate court. So most people say, okay, well, at least I have a will. Well, the thing about a will is it can go through probate court, especially if it is contested by another family member. So somebody in your family, they have a will. Well, all of a sudden, cousin Johnny comes about, and cousin Johnny said, no, 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 no. Those things are supposed to be given to me. He told me on his deathbed. Well, now you have to have a court, you have to hire lawyers, all these different situations that you have to have. Now, if he had a trust, what is in the trust, how she or she said that they want their assets to be in the trust, that is what's going to happen. A person called a trustee is going to carry out those wishes for the beneficiaries. So it's just a trust is a way to make sure that your assets are passed down correctly to the people that you want it to be passed down to.
Now that's well said. And why, is this a great tool for, single mothers, to build
Mm.
generational wealth for their kids?
Oh, this is an amazing tool for mothers in general. Yeah, you're right, especially single mothers, because sometimes people, especially like single mothers, they just say, okay, well, at least I have a will. But if they're single and they really don't have anyone else around them in terms of like a male or something of that nature, then sometimes it can get messy. So a single mother would want to have a trust so they can make sure that their assets go directly to their children and they can pass down generational wealth. As a mother, the worst feeling that you have is that your children are not taken care of if you're not here. So in order to avoid that, pass it down in a trust to make sure, that your kids are taken care of, especially as a single mother.
And that's well said. And I know with trust, oftentimes when you hear people talking about trust, it's almost like a wealthy thing. So how can someone who may not be wealthy start thinking about estate planning? Or when should
Hmm.
you start thinking about estate planning, if that should be a better question?
Yes, good question. Good question. Well, you really want to start thinking about estate planning as soon as possible, right? As soon as you have children, there's a couple of things that you want to do. You want to make sure that you have life insurance on yourself. You can put that in the trust as well, right? Um, and estate planning is so crucial because unfortunately, we don't know how long we have, right, in this earth. But we want to make sure that our kids and our family are protected, right? So you have to think of it like this. And I know this might seem morbid, but it's the truth. When your family is already grieving if something does happen, now they have to think about money and assets and all those kind of things. Make it easier for them that now that they know that these things are in a trust, you have it allocated properly so that this process isn't already more hurtful. So if there's a mother out there and they're just like, okay, well, why do I even care? That's the reason why you care, because you care about your children, you care about your family. And if she wants to just get started, with estate planning, the first thing she should do is, first of all, I have a checklist. I'm not trying to do this as a plug, but I wish somebody helped me when I was creating my trust. If you go to my Instagram page, Prosper with Regina, I have a checklist and it gets you thinking about all the things that you need for your trust, right? Because when you talk to these lawyers, they might not explain these things to you, right? They're just there to file the document, right? They're going to get their information and file the document. When you think about, well, who's going to take care of my kids, called who's going to take care of my kids if something happens? Who's my power of attorney? Who's my healthcare power of attorney? Who's going to be my trustee? You want to be thinking about all these things. So if I was a mother just getting started, just hearing about trust, the first thing I would do is get the worksheet, right? Get the information, and then I will contact a lawyer. But first, you want to know exactly what it is. And that's why I'm here. That's what I do. I explain all day, every day. What is trust and why is it important to you?
That's well said. And, so anyone can get a trust, for this woman, they can get a trust as soon as they have a kid, or there's a certain amount that makes sense for them, a certain kind of network for the network to get to a certain point for
Well,
them to get a trust.
oh, that's a good question. Well, okay, so a trust is made to put assets in the trust. Okay, so it really just depends. Like if you're left, I don't know, your uncle left you some land, right, and you want to pass it down to your children, put that in the trust. Or if you purchase some land and you want to put that in the trust for your kids, you can do that as well. So when I got my trust, I didn't have any assets, but I knew that I was going to be putting assets into the trust, right? And so it's really about your mindset, and it's really about where you think you're going, in your wealth journey. I think that all women should have trust, right? All women should, because if you're on this wealth journey, you're going to have assets, right? If you know what a trust is, you know what an asset is. And so I would say create a trust, you know, as soon as you can. Now, if you have a baby, right, and you want to put life insurance on your life and put it in the trust for your baby, you can do that right away. You can open up a trust once the the baby is born and put life in you have make sure you have a policy and put that in the trust for your child. It really just depends on your financial journey. But I just kind of gave you two examples of what a person would be thinking about why they would create a trust is because they're going to have assets to put in that trust.
That's well
So the
said.
sooner you get the assets, then the sooner that you're going to put it in a trust.
No, that's well said. And I know that what you call it with a trust, there's different types of trust. Do you have a recommendation for any married for women in general, or it depends on the situation?
Well, okay, so the main two types of trust are irrevocable and revocable. Okay. So revocable trust you can change, and irrevocable trust you cannot. Those are like the main two types. Now there are plenty of different trusts because of your situation. So, for instance, if you have a special needs child, there's a special needs trust. If you have life insurance policies, there's a life insurance irrevocable trust. If you want to give some of your money to your assets to charity, there's a charitable trust. So yes, it does depend on the situation. However, most of them are categorized irrevocable or revocable. So, an example of an irrevocable trust would be a life insurance trust. So, you want to make sure that whatever you put in that irrevocable trust, you don't want to change because you can't change it unless you have to go through the courts, and that's like a long system. But revocable trust, you can change. I have a revocable trust because, as your kids grow, things change, and you might want to put more assets in the trust. It just depends. Or you might want to change your trustee, right? So that's a revocable trust. So those are the two main types of trust that usually people will get.
That's well said. And that's well said. And I know with trust, like you mentioned, the different benefits of passed down wealth. But I also understand it's important to have a designated trustee, as you mentioned, to help, do your service for you. So how important is that, and
Yeah.
how would you recommend someone to go about choosing a trustee?
Okay. Well, that's a good question too. So trustee, trust, right? So you might want to trust the person that you are appointing as your trustee. It is super, super, super important to make sure that this person, not only do you trust, they are well versed in the knowledge of estate planning. Okay. And one thing about does not always have to be a person. It can be a bank, it can be a CPA firm, because sometimes when you come into wealth, are you the only person that knows about kind of wealth in your family? You might not, it's not that you're not trying to, trying to discriminate against your family, but if they don't have the financial literacy to understand what your wishes are, then they probably are not going to do it properly. So yes, you can appoint a family member. Of course, you want to trust, whoever you trust with your assets, but just keep in mind that you can also do a bank or you can do a CPA firm because they're going to take the emotions out of it. Whatever you put it for your assets, they're just going to carry it out, right? There is no, oh my gosh, or opinion with it. It is this is what it is, and I want you to carry it out. So it just depends. But yeah, those are the main three people: CPA firm, a bank, or a family, a person that you appoint. Doesn't have to be a family member, just a person that you appointed.
No, that's 100% right. So now I want to ask, let's say you have, women that listen to this, they have their credit,
Mhm.
they have some assets that they put into trust. I understand with financial literacy, one of the best, things you can give your children is knowledge. So how would you,
Mhm.
you know, advise women, mothers to educate their kids? Because yes, they can pass this assets, to these kids, but, oftentimes, when you look at wealth generation, well, by the time it gets like the third generation, the wealth is really diminished, because of the lack of knowledge, the lack of financial literacy between the children. So how would you recommend mothers to pass on this information, not only assets, but also the information to their children. So when they do get the assets, they know what to do with it.
This is such a great question. Two ways, okay? So the first way, like I said, you can do something called money school, right? And what I like about it is I literally just, I have a calendar that I call the 31-day money calendar. And what I used to do when my kids were a little bit younger, while I was cooking, I would just tell them to point to a topic because it was 31 days and each day had a topic. I mean, it could be so simple as like assets, passive income, earned income, all these different aspects, right? And so we would just talk about it, guys. You have to talk about wealth and financial literacy with your children. A lot of women sometimes, because we weren't taught and they have might messed up in the past with money, they feel like, well, why would I teach my kids when I don't know anything? Well, that's why you want to teach your kids so they can grow up and they can have this financial literacy as they get older. And I'll tell you something, you think your kids aren't listening. They are. And stuff will start making sense as they get older. I'm watching my child. We went to the sneaker store because he started school. And I watched my child get out his calculator and say, okay, this is how much I'm budgeting because I know I have to give you some money to put in my IRA. And I almost started like, I was like, oh my God, you're listening. But you have to have those conversations with them. The second thing is you need a one good thing when you have your estate planning folder, and I wish I would have brought it, but they have an area where you can actually like write a letter or like write down things that you want to say or give to your family members, your beneficiaries. Make a little booklet if you need to of all the things that you've learned about financial literacy and give that to them if something was to happen to you. So now they have something that they can tangibly have if you were to pass away. But and then the second fold is also you teaching them as they're growing, right? So don't make it complicated. I'm not saying, open up, financial statements and start talking to them. No, it's like the simple conversations. Have some in the car. Have it, when you're taking them to school, when you're fixing dinner. It's about those conversations.
No, that's well said. That's well said. And what are some resources that some of these women can tap into to learn more about financial literacy?
Yeah. Well, there's so many things. Sorry, there are so many things that they can tap into for women to learn. Oh gosh. Well, I mean, let's keep it real. Everybody's on Instagram. Everybody's on, these social media pages. Tap into the people that are teaching. Like if you don't want to read a book, some people's attention span is a little short. That's cool. Tap into the YouTube videos. Tap into the people, like myself. Yeah, I'm going to put myself in there because I'm teaching financial literacy. Tap into those people. I have learned so much just from making my feed all about financial literacy. Right? It's it's not just about picking up a book. It's about absorbing yourself in the community. Go to these events. I'm here in Atlanta. You're going to catch me at all the financial events, right? Because iron sharpens iron, right? So because there's financial industry, there's always something new to learn, right? Yes, people were doing stocks, but now there's options. Yes, people are doing real estate, but now there's mobile homes, right? So it's always about tapping in, right? It's financial literacy and growing wealth and generational wealth is not a one-time thing. You want to just be thinking about it, not all the time, but yeah, all the time.
That's good. And I want to ask, you spoke about, getting into rooms, talking about connecting with
Mm.
people. And I want to ask, through your experience, teaching, educating mothers, what do you see is like the biggest mistakes, mother makes, despite, the information's out there, despite the events out there? What do you think, what are some mistakes that they make in terms of trying to build generation wealth?
Two mistakes that mothers makes. One, they feel they're not worthy. I get a lot of people feel as though this is for them, not for me. And when you feel that way, you're not always um, you're not always ready to like jump on it and learn because it's almost like a self confidence issue. So that's the first thing. I feel like mothers, they just don't feel like it's for them. The second thing, I would say where mothers make the mistakes, they start later than sooner. When it comes to preparing generational wealth for your children, because of compound interest, time is on your side. I learned about stocks when my son was like, I would say 11. That was still too late. And I don't say too late as in, you can't reap the benefits from that age to 18. I don't care if your kid is 21, you can start investing for them. But when I say it was too late, was wow, what if I would have started when he was 1? you
Yeah.
know so if you're a new mother, start then. Start absorbing financial literacy. Like, don't wait because you don't feel like you're good enough or whatever the case may be. Like, those are all excuses. Just start. It's super, super important because what it does is it gets your children ahead of that curve, like that curve of life. Think about if you would have had, well, for myself, I don't really know for you, but if I would have had stocks when I was 1, if I would have had a rental property waiting for me, if I would have had business credit ready to go, I mean, I, the sky would have been the limit. It still is, but I'm just saying, start as soon as you learn. It's time to go. Don't wait.
No, no, you're 100% right. And it's funny, one thing I'm hearing in this conversation a lot is mindset. And I can just,
Mm,
like, I know we talk about mindset in terms of reading books, tap into people, but yet some people want to listen to this podcast and still not grasp the point of changing their mindset, the
mhm.
point of, um, basically like just changing their mindset and understanding that this is something that they can not only for them benefit them but also benefit their generation down the line. Like you mentioned, some people feel like they're not worthy enough to build wealth for their kids. So like what
Yeah.
would you say to that woman, to get out that mindset and feel inspired, feel motivated, like this is possible?
Well, oh gosh, I would tell her a couple of things. I would go a little deep with her. Okay. I would say, your ancestors did whatever they needed to do to get you where you are. How dare you not feel as though it is your right to, oh, excuse me 1 second. Hello, Irene, sorry. Um, how dare you not feel that it's your right successful? Okay, so I'm bringing it that way. How dare you not feel it's your right not to be successful? And number two, you were born from the king. I mean, that in itself, you know, and so it just goes back to we have to retrain. We have to unlearn to relearn. There's a lot of things that have been embedded, especially as a Black woman, have been embedded in us. And we have to unlearn all that to relearn who we are. So if there's a mother out there that is like, okay, listen, I hear you, sister, but you're you. I am me. Listen, sweetie, we are the same. We are the same. I am, and I'm just going to put it out there. I am an Oprah. I am a Beyonce. I am, and so are you. It's just in our own lane. God has put all different types of purpose in each and every one of us. It's our job to fulfill that purpose here on the earth that He created. So we can't think of like the lack part. We have to think of the abundance part. In a woman that is kind of like, yeah, well, whatever. Her even tapping into this is going to maybe switch that switch in her brain, which says, you know what? I can do this. What is my next step? What is the next step? You know? And so that's what I would say to her. That's why I would go deep. I would go way back to our ancestors, find that source, then propel forward. And another thing, if she's a mother, she's a woman, and you have children, like it is your job. It is your job to make sure that you pass on as much as you can to your children. Like it's your responsibility, and I can go there, but whether you wanted the baby or not, it's still your job. So do a good job, especially if you have the mindset to do it, if you have the wherewithal. And what I mean by wherewithal is you can tap in, like how they're watching us right now. They can tap in and find that information.
That's well said. That's well said. I definitely want to thank you for your time, Ms.Regina Byrd. For those who are listening, how can they learn more about your program, opportunities that you have? You can quickly tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. So they can go to my IG, Prosper with Regina. They can tap in. I have a trust fund webinar coming up. I believe on the 25th. Anyways, they can go tap in, get more information with trust fund webinar, and really get solid information. I actually have a life insurance agent that is going to come on, and they teach you about how to put life insurance inside your trust. So that's the trust fund webinar. I have so many different resources. I have a budget calendar. I have a credit program, how to increase your credit in 60 days. I took a break from social media, and in that time, I increased my credit over 200 points. Like I was not playing. And so I teach people how to do that. I have Mother's Guide to Wealth, Mother's Guide to Making Money on Instagram. Like the sky is the limit. Dividend income. I teach about stocks and dividends. So yeah, guys, tap into a mother who knows where you are, came from where you are, and now understands where she's going. And that's just to wealth, which we all, wealth is our birthright. If y'all don't know that, it's our birthright. It's not even something that's over there. It's inside of us. We just have to tap into it.
No, that's definitely well said. And when do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Smile because I think about that often. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I will have my master's in legal studies, right? As well as I am a certified financial planner, but I wanted to. There's another certification that I'm going to get. I want to get my series where I could help, especially women with investing. Also, I'm going to have, and this is in 5 years, actually sooner, I'm going to have my own office where women can come, I mean, in families. And you know what's so funny? I've had a lot of men in my DMs like, oh, you don't teach the dudes too? You don't teach the guys? So families are welcome, men, women, children. They're going to be welcome to learn about trust. And there's going to be a lawyer there and a life insurance agent. So they're going to actually be able to actually have their trust completed, make sure they have life insurance, and then I'm going to be able to put them on a financial planning trajectory. So that's all going to be at my office coming to an Atlanta city near you.
Not a problem. And how can people stay in touch with you on social media?
Yes, so follow at Prosper with Regina. At Prosper with Regina.
Thank you very much.
You're gonna learn so much. You're welcome.
For those who are listening, I hope you guys don't see it as another podcast, another person in a Wealth in Christ podcast. I hope this inspires you. I hope this encourages you. I hope this sets you on fire to go and do something with information. If you're looking for a group of Christians who are building towards financial freedom, look no further and join the Pray and Invest group. And if you have yet to subscribe to us on YouTube, our podcast, or wherever you get your podcast from, please do. And stay tuned for next week's episode. And thank you again, Ms.Regina Byrd.
Thank you.